మైక్ మైక్ అయితే అవుతుంది. మైక్ ఆఫ్ చే మైక్ అవుతుంది. ఆ!
Impact on the camera's performance. And they did upgrade the camera on the back. So it's now a 12 megapixel Sony IMX386 sensor with optical image stabilization, an f2.0 aperture, and still inside that 24 karat gold ring in the middle of the back of the phone. So no dual cameras on the back of this guy again, but it's definitely an upgrade in the camera department, even if it's not quite to the level of what Samsung and Apple are doing right now. And the fingerprint reader on the back is also now even faster, like it's super fast now, which is confidence inspiring. And of course, it's now in that ideal location for one-handed use since the phone's smaller and it's still in the middle of the back. And on the inside, you have some pretty op specs right now. Snapdragon 835, 6 gigs of RAM, up to 256 gigs of storage, and a 3400 milliamp hour battery. So with all that refresh in the hardware, which is pretty impressive, it basically comes down to whether or not you can stand the MIUI software on top of Android, that ROM. And they have added a bunch of new things in these updates to make it more accessible, but more importantly, more familiar. MIUI now has a split-screen multitasking mode, so this is something almost every phone now has except the iPhone, where you can do 2 apps open at once. That's been added, and it's pretty simple to use and works well, so you can really take advantage of the big screen. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised it wasn't on the original. There's still that quick ball that moves the bottom row of shortcuts anywhere you want on the display, in case the corners of the 6-inch panel are still kind of hard to reach. And it's overall cleaned up. It's pretty...
Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? And we're taking a look at the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2. Now, this is the update to one of last year's more anticipated and pretty well-regarded devices that brought a bit of a different philosophy to the display and design of a large smartphone. Now, one thing that was an issue last year with the Mi Mix was that it was just a little bit too big, but that has changed this year while still retaining a lot of what made the design of last year's Mi Mix pretty well received. The update to the overall design brings rounded sides, and the frame is actually made of aluminum alloy, while the backing is still made of that lovely ceramic that Xiaomi loves to use in their devices. It makes for a phone that is still really nice to look at, and it feels a lot better in the hand due to its smaller overall size than compared to last year. That screen comes in at 5.99 inches with an 18:9 Full HD Plus display that still looks pretty great and has the most minimal bezels that they can possibly put on this device. Now, the forehead is actually as minimal as possible, just like last year's Mi Mix, so the front-facing camera has been moved to the bottom right corner. Yes, this is still a thing when it comes to the Mi Mix, and it might be a little bit odd at first, but they really tried to make this a black slab all around, and as you can see closely, they actually coated it with a black material so that it will pretty much blend in with the rest of the turned off screen. Speaking of that front-facing camera, it is a 5 megapixel shooter, and when you open up the camera,
15,000 rupees, that translates to about $235 US. Let that sink in. Remember those specs I read a moment ago? For $235 US. Dang, son. At $235 US, the Mi A1 offers exceptional value for the money. And I'm not talking about the frugal type either. It's hard not to ignore the fact that you could buy 4 Mi A1s for the price of a single Galaxy Note 8. Now, we wouldn't go so far to call the Mi A1 the new Nexus. That's because Xiaomi has more control over the hardware and software of the device compared to LG and the Nexus 5, for instance. The Mi A1 features certain features that Google would probably never accept in a device it fully controls, including a micro SD card slot, an infrared blaster, and capacitive keys instead of a software navigation bar. Also, Xiaomi ultimately controls software updates on the Mi A1. Google promised timely updates for the device, but it's Xiaomi that gets the final say on when OTAs go out. Case in point, the Mi A1 will get Oreo by the end of the year, which is not exactly fast. Another reason to be super excited about this phone, even if you're not gonna buy it, is that it gives the Android One program a shot. Case in point, the Mi A1 was meant Oreo to by the attract the next billion users, right? The next billion users on the internet means that we have a more democratic society. It means that developers can have a more thriving business model because they have more people to sell their stuff to. That's all exciting. We can connect with people that haven't really been connected with the rest of the world. That's a good thing. You see, Android One sort of fizzled out a couple years ago because they didn't have the partners necessary to make it work. Please, Xiaomi and Google, make this happen, because there are billions of people out there who can't watch me, and they can't comment, and they can't troll and harass me. And, you know, those are all really good things. So what do you guys think of this phone? You like? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you get the phone, either next week, next month, next year, whatever, let me know right there on Twitter. Tell me what you think about it. I am excited about the Android One program. Again, I hope you are too. Obviously, I love flagship phones. I talk about them for a living. But you know what I like even better? Good phones that most people can actually get their hands on. And the good news is that the new Mi A1 the first Android One phone from Xiaomi is aiming to do exactly that. Let's just say the phone is a far cry from the basic Android One phones of 2014. Highlights include a 5.5-inch Full HD display, Snapdragon 625 processor, 4GB of RAM, a 12-megapixel dual camera with optical zoom, a 3080 mAh battery, a dedicated amp, USB Type-C, and a metallic unibody design. As with all Android One devices, you get near-stock Android experience with the promise of fast updates. Some of the biggest are India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Russia, Ukraine, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Colombia. Now, the only market that is currently selling this device is India, and it's selling for around 15,000 rupees. That translates to about $235 US. Let that sink in. Remember those specs I read a moment ago? For $235 US. Dang.